This is Lecture 51 in the ABCs of Communism series, which accompanies the book ABCs of Communism, Bolshevism 2017 this time. And what we're dealing with in this particular lecture is a continuation of our discussion of socialism with Chinese characteristics, specifically with the Xi Jinping administration, which is scheduled to go from 2012 to 2022. And it's called China's Resolution of the Problems of Overproduction, Xi Jinping taking command. Now, the party's designed for theoretical application to practice in resolving the problem of overproduction in modernized economics of the socialist type is getting underway. Before we go directly to that, let's recap real quickly Marxist theory, which underlies China's Belt and Road approach. And to do that, let me suggest that you have your copy of the book available, any edition, for Chapter 12, so that you could go back over the details of capitalism's general crisis. But for our purposes this morning, I'm just going to talk about capitalism's general crisis is caused by the necessity to stay competitive, to continue to invest more and more money into new and continually successive generations of machinery. Now, in order to stay competitive, each capitalist must constantly buy new machinery that produces more commodities per unit of labor power employed. Even so, and therefore, unless the amount of labor power going into the productive process is increased on a one-to-one basis with the introduction of each new unit of machinery, the rate of profit per unit of labor power must decrease. And I'll pull up one of the charts that we looked at in earlier lectures. Labor power applied to the technology of capitalist production, which is now we're talking about cyberneticized machinifacture, produces value 1, value 2. Those are the values of the amount of production that's required to pay the wages, that is A, and the amount of production that's required to keep the machinery maintained, and everything else goes into the surplus value column. And in capitalism, we have profit in competition in the subcolumns with the next generation of machinery. To keep the rate the same, you have to have labor power and technology introduced at a one-to-one ratio in order to have the same rate on the right side of the equation. Now, having said that, it must decrease, that is, the rate of profit in a capitalist system must decrease because the new machinery costs a lot of money, and without increasing labor power input, the rate by which surplus value is increased must be relatively less than it had been previously, precisely because of this new cost of new equipment, and most importantly, and far more importantly, because this cost is entered into in order to reduce the cost of labor power, which means fewer workers, here on number A, fewer workers working fewer hours. And that was the whole point, that the capitalists invested in this new machinery. Now, we have a completely different situation when we have socialism, because when we take power, our general solution is to introduce more workers on a one-to-one ratio to the amount of machinery that's being utilized, and therefore create more value and more surplus value. A totally different way of handling it. So, in the capitalist system, furthermore, finally, leading to capitalist collapse, which they call depression or recession, there is the inevitable consequence of capitalists sending workers to the street, unemployed and without disposable income. In short, the introduction of new machinery by the capitalist and his consequent ability to reduce V1 by so doing, that is the first form of value, results in his temporarily making more money, but is simultaneously destroying the at-home working class and its ability to purchase what it needs, including even those things workers produced themselves. In other words, if he can sell what is produced in foreign markets, as far as he's concerned, he's done well. But now that more at-home workers are unemployed, they cannot even buy what they produce. Now, this is the true definition and the classical definition of capitalist overproduction. With the entire world theoretically available for the sale of what he is producing, the capitalist is ameliorating this effect as far as he is concerned. However, as far as workers at home in any given country are concerned, they are increasingly fucked. Now, our solution in general is that we change all of that when we seize power and introduce an entirely new system of social relations, and instead of reducing labor power input, we hire more workers and still more workers and face instead of unemployment and increasing labor shortage. Our solution in China is a distinctly different than it would be in a smaller country. In the PRC we have two distinct economic sectors. First of all, the main sector, which is government or state-owned and generally referred to as socialist, and secondly, a capitalist sector primarily in special economic zones, which consists of privately owned enterprises regulated by the PRC authorities in said zones. Now, overproduction has a new face in this case, because the principal problem today is that China has 1.3 billion people, soon 1.4 billion, almost all of whom are employed and productive. Now, huge quantities of surplus, and that's all the time, huge quantities of surplus value are therefore being created daily in both sectors of the PRC economy. The domestic market, of course, is also huge, but not huge enough. It cannot absorb all the surplus value being created by itself alone, and it's going to be many decades before it can. So what to do? Now, investment in win-win cooperation is what we're going to be talking about today. The answer is to invest great amounts into the domestic consumption economy, which ranges from monster projects like the South-North water diversion projects to individual household projects, the latter being things ranging from homes and support facilities such as schools, clinics, sewage, potable water, etc., to household white appliances and all the electronic stuff that people want to have in what they call a moderately prosperous way of life, iPods, home entertainment centers, etc. Now, given the qualitative increase in labor power, however, this is not enough. As we've just said, even with all of this, it's not nearly enough to absorb this incredible amount of surplus value that's being created when you have 1.3 billion people working essentially all the time. Because even if they lose one job in a state-owned enterprise that's being closed for inefficiency, they're quickly moved into another sector and they go right back to work. So essentially these people are employed all the time. Now, with all the resources imaginable at home for everything from infrastructure and the military and domestic consumption, something else must still take up the difference. Now, the Belt and Road program exports the remainder of this surplus value to other countries. Now, in the capitalist global socio-cultural stage, this capital export to foreign lands is imperialism. Here, the caps exploit cheap labor and foreign natural resources as just another profit center. Conversely, the Belt and Road program exports capital equipment, labor power, and finance capital to every country along the belt of the Silk Road countries over land and the maritime Silk Road countries by sea for mutual advancement. Now, I'm not going to spend more time on that formula. I think when you take a look at it, the important thing in your book, or if you look at the charts on earlier lectures, is that in order to maintain the rate of profit on the left side, you have to have labor power introduced at a 1-to-1 ratio with the technology introduction, which capitalists cannot do. That wasn't the point that they invested in the next generation of machinery. For us, that is the point. We can do that, we do that, and as a consequence we have all of this surplus production we have to do something with, and a domestic market in China which is growing by leaps and bounds, and we're going to talk about that more in the next lecture, but it's not enough. It's not nearly enough to absorb everything that's being produced. Now, in the future communist mode of production, with robotic, artificially intelligent Star Trek labor power, it will be possible to introduce A at the equivalent 1-to-1 ratio with B, but we're not there yet. We're in the socialist transition phase. The cost of new machinery in the future will be easily absorbed by the vastly increased productive capability of the robotically manned overall system of production. But in the meantime, when we have power, that is, when the workers have state power exercised through their vanguard party, we have a plan. And our plan calls for massive ongoing construction of new factories, infrastructural projects, health programs, and schools of all types. These new projects absorb as much labor power as we have available and continue to expand without end. And as I say in the next lecture, I'm going to talk more about the details of internal investment in China. However, for the great amount of surplus value being created, it will be decades, many decades, before the domestic economy in China alone can begin to absorb all of it. In the meantime, there is the international destination for surplus value that can take up the difference, and that specifically is what is now being called in China the Overland Silk Road Belt and the Maritime Silk Road Belt programs, which is what we're talking about this morning. Exporting surplus value to the Overland Silk Road Belt of countries and the Maritime Silk Road of countries, and that's called the Belt and Road Strategy. So the PRC, that is the People's Republic of China, under its CPC direction, Communist Party of China, proposed to resolve the problem of overproduction in both the capitalist and socialist sectors of its economy in a totally new way, namely to export that surplus value via two routes, to the Overland Silk Road Belt of nations and to the Maritime Silk Road countries. The Silk Road Economic Belt Initiative was announced in Kazakhstan in September 2013. In October 2013, the next month, Xi traveled to Southeast Asia and unveiled the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road Initiative. China agreed with Serbia, Poland, and Uzbekistan to deepen cooperation in the Belt and Road Initiative during President Xi's subsequent visit to these three countries. The Belt and Road refers to the Silk Road Economic Belt and the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road, running through Asia, Europe, and Africa, both connecting the vibrant Asian economic circle at one end and developed Europe at the other. Now, following are the major events in the development of the China Proposed Belt and Road Initiative so far. In September 2013, the Silk Road Economic Belt concept was introduced by Xi, that's XI, during his visit to Kazakhstan. He suggested China and Central Asia cooperate on such a belt. The following month, in October 2013, he proposed at a China-ASEAN, ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, community and offers guidance on the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road. In November of that year, 2013, the third plenary, that is full session, of the 18th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China called for accelerating infrastructure links among neighboring countries and facilitating the Belt and Road Initiative. And in the last month of 2013, Xi urges strategic planning of the Belt and Road Initiative to promote connectedness of infrastructure and build a community of common interests. In June of 2014, Xi says China is ready to deepen cooperation with Arab states in oil and gas, infrastructure, trade and investment, nuclear power, aerospace, and satellite and new energy forms. In November 2014, Xi announced that China will contribute $40 billion to set up a Silk Road Fund to finance Belt and Road projects. In February of 2015, China outlines priorities for the Belt and Road Initiative, highlighting transportation, infrastructure, easier trade and investment, financial cooperation, and cultural exchanges. In March of that year, 2015, China released an action plan on the principles, a framework, and cooperation priorities and mechanisms of the Belt and Road Initiative, and in May of 2015, China and Russia agreed in Moscow to integrate the former Silk Road Economic Belt with the latter's vision of a trade and infrastructure network across Eurasia. In January of this year, China, that is 2016, China and Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iran agreed to expand cooperation in the Belt and Road Initiative. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, a China-initiated multilateral bank, started operations. In June 2016, China agrees with Serbia, Poland, and Uzbekistan to enhance Belt and Road cooperation during Xi's visit to those three countries, and Xi said more than 70 countries and international organizations are participating in the construction of the Belt and Road. China enterprises have invested $14 billion along the route and created about 60,000 local jobs. Now, on the western end of the Belt and Road, intensive cooperation between China and countries in Central and Eastern Europe, CEE, propelled by the Belt and Road Initiative, has yielded rich fruits in extensive fields ranging from infrastructure to energy in the 16 CEE countries. Central and Eastern Europe are essential components of China's Belt and Road Initiative. All the 16 CEE countries are seated on the route charted by the initiative proposed by Chinese President Xi Jinping in 2013, with a vision of building a trade and infrastructure network connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa. The momentum built around the initiative has brought benefits to countries along its route, and CEE countries have emerged as among the most outstanding components of this cooperation mechanism. Major cooperation projects between China and the EEU countries are moving ahead steadily. Now let's take a close look at some of these projects. Owing to its geographic importance, Central and Eastern Europe marks an essential link in China's Silk Road Development Initiative, and the connectivity, in turn, helps improve those countries' infrastructure and boost their economic growth. Established in 2012, a 16+1 mechanism of cooperation involving China and 16 CEE countries has given a new impetus to building direct links between China and Europe. The first direct rail freight service linking China and Poland began in 2013. It takes 15 days to travel from Chengdu in southwest China to Lodz, the third largest city in Poland. The freight train service boosted trade between China and Poland. Simultaneously, a direct air link between Prague and Beijing officially went into operation on September 23, 2015. This new air link will significantly boost ties between the two countries and lead to more intensive cooperations in the fields of trade, investment, tourism, and healthcare. Czech Prime Minister Sobotka said he considered this very good news for the Czech Republic. Alongside the increasingly closer trade relations, thanks to the 16+1 mechanism, Chinese enterprises have expanded their investment in the CEE countries, which were eager for capital to upgrade their infrastructure. Now, at a China CEE summit in November 2015 in Suzhou, China, the three countries signed deals to construct and revamp the railway aimed at creating a fast lane for trade between China and Europe. The project for the modernization of the Belgrade-Budapest Railway was initially agreed on at the 2013 China CEE countries leaders meeting that took place in Bucharest, Romania, and last year's summit, that is 2015, held in Belgrade, Serbia, saw a memorandum of understanding signed by China, Hungary, and Serbia. The Trilateral Group of China, Hungary, and Serbia for Traffic and Infrastructure Cooperation is a plan for the railroad construction. It was signed in 2015 in Belgrade. In Serbia, the Zelman Borka Bridge, newly named Pupin Bridge, was completed and opened in 2014 as the first bridge built in Europe by a Chinese company. The 370-kilometer section of the railway between Belgrade and Budapest will significantly improve the transportation of passengers and goods between the two countries, as it will reduce the traveling time from 8 hours to less than 3 hours. In Macedonia, two of the main new highways are also being built with nearly 580 million euros, that is 713 million US dollars, in financing provided by the Chinese Exim Bank, Export-Import Bank. The 30-mile Mladenovice-Stip highway will connect Macedonia's capital of Skopje to the town of Stip, an important economic hub in the east of the country. And meanwhile, the 35-mile Kisevo-Ohrid highway is built in the west of Macedonia, improving the connection to its tourism center of Ohrid. The Sino-Hydro Cooperation will build the projects, but Macedonian construction companies will benefit from the cooperation as well. The Macedonian subcontractors employ a huge workforce. Now, an update on the progress. In May of this year, 2016, Xinhua reported from Astana that Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that in no more than 2 years, One Belt, One Road initiative had begun quite well. It achieved a series of important early-stage harvests. Later that day, in an interview with Chinese and Kazakhstan journalists in that country's largest city, Almaty, previously known as Alma-Ata, he repeated the message. Wang Yi said the Silk Road Economic Belt proposal was first put forward by Chinese President Xi Jinping at Kazakhstan, and later Xi proposed to build the 21st century maritime Silk Road in Southeast Asia. The proposal of One Road, One Belt is in accordance with people's common hope to develop and cooperate in different countries in Asia and Europe, and is in accordance with the world's trend of development. It is both a major step in China's all-round reform and opening up under new historical circumstances, and the most important public service provided by China to the Asian and European continent. The important early stage harvest of One Belt, One Road initiative includes the following. 1. A rise in international consensus. More than 70 countries and organizations expressed their support and willingness to join, exceeding the traditional area of One Belt, One Road, essentially forming an international, extensive, and influential cooperation framework. At the same time, 34 countries and international organizations signed intergovernmental cooperation agreements with China to build One Belt, One Road, again based on detailed cooperation plans. And last month, Wang said the Chinese Foreign Ministry signed a LIC, a letter of intent for cooperation, with the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, and the Pacific. The second major harvest so far is the financial support mechanism, and that is starting to work. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, started to operate at the beginning of this year. The Silk Road Fund formally launched its first batch of investment projects. Countries along the line are actively discussing the establishment or the expansion of bilateral cooperation funds of all kinds. Financial cooperation is unfolding quickly, which provides strong support for the construction of important projects. Thirdly, the connectivity net is in formation. Connectivity is the fundamental project for One Road, One Belt initiative, improving the land, marine, and air connection on Asian and European continents will create better conditions for cooperation. Basic to land connectivity is the construction of railroads between Hungary and Serbia and a high-speed railway in Indonesia, and these have started. Construction of railroad networks connecting China and Laos, China and Thailand have also been launched, as have a number of highway projects. Maritime connectivity is ready to go. The One Road, One Belt Summit Forum held in Hong Kong recently was a great success, receiving warm responses. Fourthly, the development in industrial capacity cooperation has been accelerated. Most important is the creation of an international industrial capacity cooperation mode. This has an important demonstrative effect. China has signed agreements with more than 20 countries to initiate systematic industrial capacity cooperation. A great many of important projects took roots in different countries. So far, various bilateral and multilateral industrial capacity cooperation funds built by the Chinese side have amounted to more than $100 billion US. China and Kazakhstan are pioneers in industrial capacity cooperation with 52 projects in early stage harvest, which amounts to more than $27 billion US of investment. Significant advances in economic corridor construction, beginning with China, Mongolia, and Russia, have been made. These countries have reached consensus in building an economic corridor and are making plans for implementation. The China-Pakistan economic corridor started early and developed fast, and a number of major projects launched. New Eurasia Continental Bridges corridor is underway. The China, Bangladesh, India, Myanmar economic corridor is steadily developing. I noticed this morning on CCTV, China Central Television, which is available 24 hours in English on the internet, a story about how a village that produces the most apricots in the world in northern Pakistan, is finally going to be able to connect with the market in the rest of the world, and certainly the rest of Pakistan, because the railroad and the highways are going through there. They're going to have a new hospital, a new school, and potable water plant. And so their apricot industry, which may not sound big to us, but it's certainly big to them, is going to have an export market. And that's just one example of how this thing is working to the benefit of people on the other side. And fundamentally, an example of how the idea of exporting surplus value by the People's Republic of China is working for the benefit of everyone, from the Chinese who need to export that surplus value to the people that are getting it. Sixthly, the China-Europe train system has been formed. So far, more than 1,500 trains have successfully traveled between China and Europe. In 2015, 815 trains were launched between China and Europe, which is 3 times the number of 2014. 10 cities in China are launching trains with 7 countries along the line as destinations, and these routes are to be permanent systems of regular transportation. Accordingly, there is an increasingly important role for the transport systems to improve economic development and trade in all the countries along these transport lines. Seventhly, trade and investment has been greatly increased. Most of the One Belt, One Road countries are at the crucial stage of industrialization and urbanization. Since the implementation of One Belt, One Road, there has been a fierce growth in regional trade and investment, with annual increase rates double the global average. In 2015, Chinese enterprises made direct investments to 49 countries related to One Belt, One Road, with a total amount of $15 billion US. Countries along the line are working hard to improve the convenience in doing business, discussing various free trade areas. And eighth, closer humanity communications have been achieved. In particular is the China-founded Silk Road Chinese Government Scholarship Program, a culture year, and art festivals with One Belt, One Road countries. The implementation of Silk Road Movie Bridge Project and Silk Road Book Project all yielded positive results. Silk Road Joint Application for the List of World Heritage has been a success. Maritime Silk Road Joint Application for the List of World Heritage has been launched. Wang Yi emphasized that in the next step, China will continue to hold to the principle of mutual discussion, mutual construction, mutual privileges. Furthermore, joining China's development with One Belt, One Road countries' development will maximize the fruits to benefit of One Belt, One Road for all the people of all the participating countries. With the formal establishment of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, on Christmas Day 2015, China's drive to advance the Belt and Road Initiative is wrapping up a year of fruitful progress, particularly in its neighborhood. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is an international financial institution that aims to support the building of infrastructure in the Asia-Pacific region. The bank has 37 member states, all founding members, as was proposed in 2013 and launched in October 2014 in a Beijing ceremony as an initiative by the People's Republic of China. The initiative gained support from 37 regional and non-regional prospective founding members, all of which have signed the Articles of Agreement that form the legal basis for the bank, and the bank started operation after the agreement entered into force on the 25th of December 2015, after ratifications were received from 10 member states, holding the total number of 50% of initial subscriptions of the authorized capital stock. Major economies that did not become permanent founding members include the G7, G8 members, Canada, Japan, and the United States. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank may have 90 members by early 2017, outstripping the membership members of the U.S. and Japan-led Asian Development Bank. The United Nations has addressed the launch of AIIB as having potential for scaling up financing for sustainable development for the concern of global economic governance. And the capital of the bank is $100 billion, equivalent to 2/3 of the capital of the Asian Development Bank and about half of that of the World Bank. The Belt and Road Initiative, which comprises the Silk Road Economic Belt and the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road, was brought up by Chinese President Xi Jinping, as we've seen, in 2013. The initiative envisions building a trade and infrastructure network connecting Asia with Europe and Africa along the ancient Silk Road routes for the mutual benefit of all involved. The vision, once realized, will directly benefit 4.4 billion people, or 63% of the global population. So far, over 60 countries and international organizations have expressed interest in active involvement in the construction of the Belt and the Road, while a number of major bilateral and multilateral projects have been underway. Many of China's neighbors are located along the routes, so they will be not only primary partners of cooperation, but also major beneficiaries. This approach fully embodies the fundamental CPC principles in every regard. It is the foundation of the PRC's neighborhood diplomacy. That is amity, sincerity, mutual benefit, and inclusiveness. A chorus, not a solo. Since the formulation of the Belt and Road Initiative, especially since the beginning of this year, 2016, Chinese leaders have been working hard to align the vision with the development strategies of its neighbors. For example, in the Russian-led Eurasian Economic Union, EEU, and the ASEAN community to promote common development and win-win cooperation. The initiative will not be a solo for China, but a real chorus of all countries along the routes. Xi said in March 2016 that the Belt and Road Initiative will serve the common interests of relevant parties and answer the call of the times for regional and global cooperation. Countries across the region have reacted positively to proposals of China. Pakistan lifted its ties with China to an all-weather strategic partnership of cooperation during a visit by Xi in April. Pakistan was among the first to join the framework. Pakistan pledged to participate in the building of an economic corridor linking its Gwadar port in the southwest to China's northwestern autonomous region of Xinjiang. The two countries have agreed to form a 1+4 cooperation structure, meaning 1, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, at the center, and 2, the Gwadar port, 3, transport infrastructure, and 4, an energy and industrial cooperation. These are the 4 essential areas to achieve win-win results and common development. Aminullah Khan, chairman of the Pakistan-China Business and Investment Promotion Committee, said that since Xi put forward the Belt and Road Initiative, the region has seen a new wave of economic development. Quote, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a pioneer project under the initiative, has provided a powerful boost to Pakistan's economy, Khan said. Quote, China's investment in Pakistan's energy and infrastructure also bolstered foreign investors' confidence in this southern Asian country, unquote. Alignment with the EEU. In the Eurasian region, most of the neighbors of China have expressed willingness to link their own development strategies with the Belt and Road Initiative. During Xi's visit to Russia on May 2016, Xi and Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a joint agreement on the alignment of the Silk Road Economic Belt and the EEU. Russia, a comprehensive strategic partner of coordination with China, has agreed to integrate its aspirations under the EEU framework. The main objective of the framework is to form a single market within the borders of its member countries by 2025 via the Silk Road Economic Belt. Observers said the China-Russia agreement is another major development of the Belt and Road Initiative for Eurasia. As such, it is of important and far-reaching significance to the economic growth in the region and the world at large. During a summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, In Russia's Ufa city in July 2016, Xi and Putin agreed to regard the regional bloc as an important platform to dovetail the Silk Road Economic Belt Plan with the EEU blueprint. Mars Saliev, a Kyrgyzstan political analyst, said he believes that the Belt and Road Initiative would provide a powerful boost to the economic development of Shanghai Cooperation Organization members. Over the past year, Kyrgyzstan has transported a large quantity of goods from China to other SCO members and even European countries. The Belt and Road Initiative offers Kyrgyzstan new opportunities to become a major transit center in Eurasia. When the railroad project between China and Kyrgyzstan is fully implemented, the Central Asian country will obtain a convenient route through Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Azerbaijan to Europe. There is also a huge potential for ASEAN's development. The Silk Road Economic Belt Initiative, announced in Kazakhstan in September 2013, resulted in Xi traveling in October to Southeast Asia, where he unveiled the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road Initiative, and specifically to strengthen regional infrastructure and trade with countries of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. Infrastructure construction and interconnectivity enhancement with ASEAN is essentially its core. The Southeast Asian bloc's goal is to build an economic community and create a competitive market of over 600 million people with free flow of goods, services, investment capital, and skilled labor. As the Belt and Road Initiative meets the demand of ASEAN countries, it has huge potential for fueling the bloc's development. It has noticeably propelled healthy development of relations of China with its Southeast Asian neighbors, and in November of last year, Xi paid his first visits to Vietnam and Singapore, two key ASEAN countries, since he became Chinese president in 2013. Now, during the visits, China and Vietnam signed an agreement on studying the feasibility of a railway program in northern Vietnam. This railroad is to be within the framework of China's Belt and Road Initiative and Vietnam's 2 corridors and 1 economic circle plan. In an address at the National University of Singapore, Xi said neighboring countries of China are the primary cooperation partners under the Belt and Road Initiative and should be the first to enjoy the benefits from it. Asanga Abhiyagunasekara, an advisor to the finance minister of Sri Lanka, spoke to the second ASEAN Development Forum earlier this month. He said that the China Belt and Road Initiative is dedicated to development, cooperation, and openness, and characterized by equality and mutual benefit on the basis of consultation, cooperation, and sharing of all involved nations. In particular, the least developed countries and developing countries will benefit substantially from the initiative, he said. Asanga cited his country as an example, saying Sri Lanka's first highways and many other infrastructure projects have been built with China's assistance, from which his nation has benefited immensely. He said China's Belt and Road Initiative will assist the entire global trade, benefit all countries, and improve the living conditions of people in Asia, Africa, and Europe. Laotians in Siphandon, a riverine archipelago in the Mekong River in Champasak province in the south of this Southeast Asian country, have also greatly benefited from the enhanced infrastructure cooperation with China. For the thousands of residents living on some of the larger islands there, they had suffered chronic shortage of daily supplies for decades due to inconvenient transportation, and all of that is changing now. Chinese President Xi Jinping on August 17th of this year, 2016, called for steady advance of the country's Belt and Road Initiative to benefit people along the routes. The Belt and Road Initiative should help promote policy coordination, infrastructure connectivity, unimpeded trade, financial integration, and mutual understanding among the people, Xi said at a symposium on the initiative held in Beijing. Priority areas for the initiative including building a platform to advance cooperation, as well as a green, healthy, intelligent, and peaceful Silk Road, Xi said. The conference was also attended by Vice Premier Zhang Zhuoli, National Development and Reform Commission's head Su Xiaoxi, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, Communist Party chiefs of Fujian, Xinjiang, Guangdong, and Shanxi, as well as experts from think tanks. The initiative proposed by Xi in 2013 refers to building a Silk Road economic belt and the 21st century maritime Silk Road. It envisions building a trade and infrastructure network connecting Asia with Europe and Africa along ancient trade routes. And she said more than 100 countries and international organizations have so far participated in the Belt and Road Initiative. China has signed agreements with more than 30 countries along the routes to jointly build the Belt and Road, and more than 20 countries have teamed up with China in industrial cooperation. The progress and results of the Belt and Road Initiative have been greater than expected, Xi noted, and the Belt and Road can be seen as an opportunity to promote transnational interconnection, improve trade and investment cooperation, advance cooperation in international capacity and equipment manufacturing to rebalance and stabilize the world economy, said Xi. Against the backdrop of a sluggish global economy, the initiative will help stabilize the world economy. Industrial capacity cooperation between China and countries along the route will advance their industrialization and modernization, as well as improve their infrastructure. And all of this is going to be the principal topic in the G20 meeting coming up next week in Hangzhou, China, which you can watch on CCTV, and they have created a special channel on this meeting, which is the most important international meeting of this year, where you're going to have leaders from 20 different countries attending. The Rockefellers are even going to send their favorite house Negro, Barack Obama, to attend, and I suppose he'll do a song and dance there of some kind. But the important thing is that, for the most part, these are people sending serious delegations to work out the kind of programs that only these 20 great countries can promote together. She stressed that specific Belt and Road policies will be worked out, and major support should be focused on these strategic projects, by which he means including facilities for cooperation, energy resource use, and core technology research and development. Domestic enterprises are encouraged to invest in countries along the Belt and Road, and countries along the routes are welcome to do business in China, she said. She also advocated financial innovation and cooperation in building the Belt and Road, adding the initiative should include a stable, sustainable, and risk-controllable financial security system. She said the Belt and Road Initiative will be integrated into China's regional development plans, such as the Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei Coordinated Development Plan and the Yangtze River Economic Zone Development Plan, and more effort will be spent on pilot projects to generate benefits as early as possible. Li Xiaozing, president of the China Public Diplomacy Association, said in Singapore, August 16, 2016, that the Belt and Road Initiative is making solid progress and demonstrating bright prospects. Li gave the keynote speech at Singapore's Regional Business Forum 2016. Li Xiaozing is a former foreign minister of China. He stressed that the Belt and Road Initiative is not a solo for China itself, but a chorus performed by all the countries along the routes. Chinese dreams at home and abroad. On the 29th of November 2012, Xi first used the phrase Chinese dream during a high-profile visit to the National Museum of China. It was a quite appropriate venue where Xi and his standing committee colleagues were attending a National Revival exhibition. Since then, the phrase has become the signature political slogan of the Xi era. Xi and Communist Party theoreticians coined the phrase Chinese dream to describe the party's overarching plans for China. Since 2013, the phrase has emerged as the distinctive official ideology of the party leadership, much as scientific outlook on development was for Hu Jintao. The origin of the term Chinese dream is unclear. Gringo propagandists like to use the phrase American dream, referring to North Americans only. The Chinese version emphasizes individual self-improvement and opportunity. The slogan's use in official settings since 2013 are consistently linked with the phrase Great Revival of the Chinese nation. At any rate, the policy implications of the Chinese dream are quite clear in the great achievements of the 5-year plans. Xi has taken a hard line on security issues, including projecting China onto the world stage. Xi's political program calls for China more united, confident of its own value system and political structure. Under Xi, China has also taken a more critical stance on North Korea, the DPRK, while improving its relationship with South Korea, the ROK. China-Japan relations have suffered because of Abe's willingness to operate as an errand runner for gringo imperialism, and the thrust of the U.S. conspiracy against China with the ROK are the Diaoyu Islands. In response to Japan's provocations, China declared an air defense identification zone in November of 2013. Xi has called the China-U.S. relationship in the contemporary world a new type of great power relation. However, the current gringo bosses are so-called neocons and unwilling to use this phrase, which is antithetical to their U.S. should rule the world philosophy and program. Under Xi's administration, the strategic and economic dialogue with Washington that began under Hu Jintao has continued. On China-U.S. relations, Xi said, if China and the United States are in confrontation, it would surely spell disaster for both countries. Xi met with President Obama privately at the Sunnyland Ranch in California in 2013 and the Shirt Sleeves Summit in the hope of getting around the neocon nonsense. Simultaneously, the CIA, NSA propaganda departments made a false flag cause célèbre over the South China Sea. Xi knows gringo imperialism may have to suffer a great military defeat, equivalent to what happened to the Spanish Empire in 1588, before it accepts the idea of a multipolar world. Accordingly, China is investing sufficient amounts into its state apparatus, that is, the military and intelligence branch, and the Xi administration is cultivating stronger relations with Russia. Russia is simultaneously coming around to realizing that gringo imperialism may have to be confronted with a military defeat in Europe. Russia has been thoroughly awakened by U.S. attempts to seize the Ukraine in 2014. Xi attended the opening ceremonies of the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi. Under Xi, China signed a $400 billion gas deal with Russia. Each leader attended the other's national celebration of the defeat of fascism in World War II, and China has become Russia's largest trading partner. On May 21, 2014, Xi had spoken critically of the U.S. strategic pivot, as they call it, to Asia, while addressing a regional conference in Shanghai. Xi called on Asian countries to unite and forge a path together, rather than get involved with third-party powers. Quote, matters in Asia ultimately must be taken care of by Asians. Asia's problems ultimately must be resolved by Asians, and Asia's security ultimately must be protected by Asians, unquote. In November 2014, in a major policy address, Xi called for a decrease in the use of force, preferring dialogue and consultation to solve the current problems and issues plaguing the relationship between China and its Southeast Asian neighbors. In April 2015, Xi led a large delegation on a state visit to Pakistan, and during his visit he signed energy and infrastructure deals worth $45 billion US, including the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Pakistan's highest civilian award was conferred upon him. And in May 2015, U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter warned the government of Xi Jinping to halt its rapid island building in disputed territory in the South China Sea. This was a calculated provocation against the PRC with no justification. Xinhua has devoted an entire channel, that's the New China News Agency, XINHUA, devoted an entire channel to the truthful exposition of China's historical claim to the South China Sea and the PRC's long protection of maritime traffic throughout the South China Sea. Fighting back against imperialism, Xi's program is bipartite, strengthening the party by streamlining strict party discipline and initiating a large anti-corruption campaign to remove enemy elements from within, and 2 Mao-style mass line campaigns externally to make party officials better understand and serve the needs of ordinary people. In 2013, document number 9, classified as a confidential internal document, was widely circulated within the Chinese Communist Party. This document warns of 7 dangerous Western propaganda themes. 1. Constitutional democracy. 2. Universal values of human rights. 3. Civil society. 4. Capitalism's so-called open market neoliberalism. 5. Media independence. 6. Historical nihilism, that is, criticism of past errors. And 7. Questioning reform and opening. Coverage of these U.S. propaganda themes in educational materials is forbidden. Xi's administration will not tolerate CIA's subversive activity, as has been seen in the arrest and imprisonment of compradors, such as Xu Ziyong, as well as numerous others who the CIA gave the name New Citizens Movement. Prominent CIA legal activist Pu Xingkang of the Wekian movement was also arrested and detained, and a law enacted in September 2013 authorized a 3-year prison term for bloggers who shared more than 500 times any content considered defamatory. The State Internet Information Department held a seminar instructing bloggers to avoid writing about politics, the Communist Party, or making statements contradicting official narratives, summons groups of influential bloggers to that meeting, and many bloggers stopped doing that. Now, having said that, we have covered most of the points I wanted to go over on how China is solving the problem of overproduction. And in our next lecture, which will be in September, we'll be able to review what's happened at the Hangzhou 20 summit, because it's going to concentrate on what countries can do internally in terms of building their economies, and that certainly will be important for all of the countries along the Belt and Road. But I hope what I've succeeded in doing here this morning is giving you an idea of the revolutionary significance to Marxism-Leninism of the whole concept of exporting surplus value in a new way.